human do not produce light. Light and all those who bear it are unwelcome in this place.
And that is the gist of this challenge. Not producing light might sound pretty simple, but it is absolutely not. I took this to mean a lot more than just don't use torches or glow sticks. If something my character does generates light, I can't do it. If an item produces light, I can't use it, craft with it, or craft at it. The biggest implications of this are that, firstly, all magic and summoning weapons are immediately off limits because regenerating mana produces light. All guns and launchers and most types of arrows also produce light, so I can't use those. Even among melee weapons, a very large number of them produce light, meaning I have an extremely limited selection of usable weapons. I also can't make any NPC houses because I can't place light sources. The only NPCs I can use are the ones that naturally spawn in the world, and they're only going to have one life. I can't smelt any ores into bows because furnaces and forges produce light. This also means that I can't make glass to make bottles for potions, which is going to limit my potion supplies. Next, I can't use any mounts or minecarts, and I can't do any crafting with the hard mode souls because they all produce light. So I can't make any wings that require souls of flight, can't make keys of night or light, and I can't craft summoning items for the mech bosses among some other things. And the less obvious one, I can't fucking see anything! So yeah, there's a lot going on here. To start with, I make a medium-sized expert world with a random seed. Having a seeded world would kind of defeat the whole purpose. I make a crimson world because initially I thought Ico arrows didn't produce light, and I hop right in. There is plenty of daylight, so I try not to let it go to waste. Lots of wood is going to let me navigate the world easily, so I spend a minute to gather some. The axe's weird hitbox forces me to have to kill a slime, and then I get on my way, immediately running into a living tree. I may not be able to see what's happening here, but these generate in a very predictable way. A jagged path downward with a door to the treasure room which I can hear opening. I find my way into the chest room and open it without seeing anything, and then make my way back out. And yes, that pot dropped a torch. That's going to happen a lot. Unfortunately, there's a ton of stuff outside of my control that produces light. The best I can do is just try to minimize it from happening and remove them immediately. Now sunflowers will also produce light, so I go ahead and get rid of any that I come across while I've got the chance. Stone is going to let me make arrows, and I make a pit stop to grab some before heading on. I start navigating the jungle, but the water and the lack of a speed buff makes it just a little bit tough. Now I'm going to blame dying here on the complete lack of light here on the surface. I mean, I couldn't see what was going on at all. Alternatively, I could tell you that it was all planned and that dying is my only way to get back to spawn since I can't use recall potions or magic mirrors, and re-entering the game is for cowards. In either case, this is the first of many, many deaths. I make a small house to keep myself and the guide safe back at spawn since he can't respawn and I need him alive for the wall of flesh. I do accidentally throw a glow stick because of smoke tools, so I just reload the game to get rid of it. Off to the Crimson, and night is fast approaching. I cut down a tree to make a shadewood bow, which is substantially better than a wooden one, and I head down for the hell of it. There's no way for me to break Crimson Hearts down here, nor is there anything that would actually help me. I was just kind of bored. I dance around a bit with some spiders and then drown myself to head back home. It's nighttime now, and I start wandering the world, going across the Crimson in the process. I'm still deciding on the rules at this point, and I come upon some torch zombies. I play around with the idea of leading one of them to light the way, but decided not to after a few seconds of it. After all, Agdane will murder you if a torch hollow follows you into the undead crypt. After this, I head back to the surface and keep exploring. It's dark at night, but you can still kind of see what's going on. The next major issue starts to reveal itself though. Enemies drop coins, then pick up those coins and produce light, and ultimately there is nothing I can do about this unless I just didn't play on expert mode. At first I try to kill every enemy that's picked up coins, but that's just not feasible. Enemies picking up coins is going to be a major source of light throughout the game, and in the end I decide to kill enemies that produce large amounts of light, like these, but I'm not obligated to kill everything that makes any amount of light. I head across the Crimson, loot a few chests, pass the dungeon, and take the treasure from this ocean before drowning again. I have to spend a lot of time on the surface right now because going underground without being able to see is very difficult, especially with a slow mining speed. After I get an iron pickaxe, I start making my way down using rope to create a elevator. I stumble into a glowing mushroom biome, get some treasure from it, and continue to make very slow progress like this. Using Spelunker, Danger Sense, and Hunter potions, it's almost like I can see. However, with very limited potion supplies because I can't make glass, I don't have this luxury all the time. So a lot of the time I'm stuck wandering around in the dark like this, but being in the dark doesn't mean I can't do anything meaningful. With a metal detector I can tell when I'm near a chest and I can use Smout Cursor to open it when I'm nearby. I've just got to look around a bit and right click until I finally... Okay, well now it's disarmed. I head back, take the loot, and notice there's another chest nearby. I've just got to wander around a bit again until, at last, I find... Alright, well third time's the charm. There's another chest nearby, and this time I've got the help of a danger sense potion, and I avoid dying to a third dead man's chest. Overall, dying really doesn't matter that much, which is why I'm very liberal with letting myself get killed. At least that's the lie I'll keep telling myself to cope with constant failure. Worst case scenario, it's a recall, 15 seconds of waiting, and I lose a little money. I never lose anything meaningful since this is a softcore character, so I'm not remotely afraid of or concerned about dying. I do it on purpose, over and over again during this challenge. Aside from a few times early on where I left and re-entered the world, I only get home by respawning or by walking all the way back. My plan at first had been to reach the underworld to use a Hellforge before I decided that I couldn't use them because they generate light. I more or less made the rules as I went along, and I did a bit of testing as well. There are plenty of times where I will try out a weapon or item to see if it makes light, and not use it if it does. This is fairly casual, and I'm not approaching it in a hardcore way. If I make a mistake, I'm just going to fix or ignore it, and then move on, and not reset the run or anything. If you don't like that, feel free to file a complaint, and I will respond at my earliest convenience in a cordial and mature manner. The floating islands I find have nothing but Star Furies, which is quite unfortunate, but after a while I managed to find a solid number of huts underground along with a mace, the main weapon that I use for a while. I do plenty of exploring and get quite a lot of loot, although I don't find any boots or lucky horseshoes before heading back to the surface. And with a blood moon upon me, I'm stuck in the middle of the Crimson with just a mace and the pouring rain. I'd love to get home, but I'd rather not lose all the money I've got on me. Plus, I'd like some vertebra. I get a tentacle spike to drop, which proved to be a very solid weapon once I got the hang of it. It's just like Don't Starve Together all over again. It has decent damage and stackable damage over time effect, so I use it a bit. I spend the night here getting a few bloody tears in the process. I do make a slight mistake, which is that I make and use some enchanted nightcrawlers. I thought they were like truffle worms and didn't actually produce light, but it turns out they glow very faintly. It wasn't ultimately consequential, I did not have a meaningfully different outcome because I used them, but in hindsight I should have just used the regular worms. After spending some time in the jungle, I finally get a full 400 life and a good set of equipment. I make a summoning item for King Slime, which, again, I realize in hindsight I crafted at a light-generating crimson altar, but anything is justifiable for the incredibly fashionable slime mask. This right here, this is perfection. I take out the Eye of Cthulhu next, and then prepare to fight the brain before realizing that there was absolutely no reason to fight the brain, as it would only result in a futile spiral into a deep depression. So on to Skeletron, because there's no way I'm fighting Queen Bee in the dark with a mace and wooden arrows. Before that though, I'd like to get a Goblin Tinkerer, which means killing goblins, and the problem with that is that I can't break a Crimson Heart, since explosives produce light and I don't have a Dryad, which means goblins can't naturally spawn. I have to farm a bunch of them to make a battle standard, which takes nearly an hour. Whatever, goblins come, goblins die, and I figure out how to use the harpoon effectively for crowd control. It only took about 3,500 hours. If you overshoot your target, it'll pierce infinitely on the return trip and deal heavy knockback away from you. It isn't completely worthless, unlike myself. In fact, I would go so far as to say the harpoon is quite important for my success in early pre-hard mode. I go underground, find the Tinkerer in a conveniently illuminated area, and head home. Meaning jumping into a lake and drowning. After combining a few of my accessories, I go ahead and fight Skeletron, and it's just a little bit difficult dealing enough damage to kill him with wooden arrows and a gold bow before daytime. Also, my aim was downright terrible. But in times of great need, heroes are born, and there is no hero greater than the harpoon. By positioning myself uncomfortably close to Skeletron, I can deal rather large amounts of damage pretty quickly due to the very low cooldown. With him dead, I get the Bone Glove and access to the dungeon. And the dungeon is actually pretty easy to navigate in the dark, because the enemies make large amounts of light naturally, and the dungeon generates in a very predictable way. I rescue the mechanic and buy everything that I need from her, which are the components for the grand design, and then go out hunting for a Valor, a Shadow Key, and a Cobalt Shield. A gold bow and a mace just aren't going to cut it for the Wall of Flesh, and I had planned to try using the Valor with a long walkway at first. I've only got one shot though, since the guide won't respawn, so I need to make sure I don't make any severe mistakes during that fight. I also make sure to get an alchemy table, as that'll let me stretch my low supply of bottles even further. And there's another extremely valuable item that the mechanic has, and that is her fishing rod. I happen to find her at just the right time to buy one, but I need to go home and get money first. Once I come back and buy it, I've got the best fishing rod that I'll have for the entire game. Miles above the reinforced rod, and substantially better than the fiberglass pole. I also make the Spinal Tap, which is an incredible weapon on its own. Even without minions, the damage and range are fantastic, and marking enemies makes it much easier to navigate and find them in the dark. The only problem, which it shares with all whips, is that it is incredibly annoying to listen to. It's just this, over and over again. After getting what I want from the dungeon, it is time to fish. Not having NPC houses means I can't get a merchant, and no merchant means no bug net. That means no Duke Fishron, no hard mode crates, and no blood moon fishing. There is an alternative, however, but it is incredibly slow and tedious. I need to fish. a lot. Not only do I need to turn 6 enchanted nightcrawlers, which technically should be worms, into an unlimited supply of master or journeyman's bait, but I need to complete fishing quests until I get a golden bug net. It takes several hours and a lot of my bottles being turned into sonar potions, but I come out of it with plenty of bait and a golden bug net. A bed made this much more tolerable since I can sleep to fast forward time and I move my spawn here. I would venture out, then die quickly to get back and turn in quests. I take a few minutes to loot the underworld and in the process find a hellwing bow. Unfortunately, firing wooden arrows will make flaming bats, which give off light. The hellwing bow would be phenomenal against the wall of flesh though, so I head underground in search of a solution to make the bow functional. Now I can't make houses to spawn NPCs that would sell me arrows, nor do I have worm's teeth to make unholy arrows because this is a crimson world. All of the craftable arrows will make light, and there's only a single other type of arrow in the entire game that I can get, excepting the unholy arrows required from the Eye of Cthulhu and Hard Mode pots. This arrow is available in infinite supply, is very easy to acquire in the right circumstances, and is normally almost completely useless. That's right, it's the bone arrow. The unique arrow sold by the skeleton merchant during certain moon cycles, which deals marginally more damage than a wooden arrow and pierces a single time. I hunt down the merchant, wait for his inventory to change, and buy a bunch of them. And, luckily enough, using bone arrows will stop the hellwing bow from making light. I've got my weapon for the wall of flesh, make my arena, and summon the boss. And honestly, I completely forget what an appropriate arena size is for the wall of flesh in normal circumstances on different difficulties. What's ingrained in my mind is a pacifist rule set in For the Worthy Master mode, which takes about 7,000 feet of completely open space, which is about half of a large-sized world. I decide not to take any chances since I can't summon the wall of flesh again and make the arena much larger than it needs to be. I kill the wall of flesh without much trouble, get a ranger emblem, and confirm what I knew to be true. The Pwn Hammer generates light. That means that I can't craft mech summoning items, and I also can't use the Pwn Hammer to break a demon altar and let them spawn naturally. I don't have many options, and I'd really love to use a weapon that doesn't split your eardrums open. With nothing left to do here, I end it all in a pool of lava and head home. Now you might be wondering about me not uploading any videos recently. I've been dealing with some stuff in my personal life and haven't had the motivation to do much. Also, Deerclops is a phenomenal pain in the ass to kill blindfolded because of the hands added in expert mode. I hate whoever added those because it means cheesing is the only reasonable answer I could find, and I didn't want to do that. Regardless, making these is a very long process. Sometimes the gameplay takes a very long time, sometimes the editing does, and sometimes both do. I've been doing takes of this video for like 6 hours just to get voice recordings I'm content with. It mostly comes down to motivation and free time, which I've been short on recently. I'd like to upload the second part to this video soon though, and finish the blindfolded stuff. So hopefully that'll be in the next week or two.